Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology who will be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek podcast, episode number 306, with Shai Reshef, founder of University of the People. I am honored to have him on. I've been an admirer of their work for quite some time. This amazing global institution, tuition-free, and really accessible, and just an accredited online university that's really, I think, a hallmark of what higher ed can and should be, of really fully embodying the opportunity engine that folks pursuing earnestly to improve their lives and get credentials and move their career and lives forward, just trying to kind of broaden that as much as we can, and in a way kind of simplify and distill down like what a higher institution should be. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to kind of uplift and give some praise and celebrations to here in this episode. So appreciate you listening and enjoying this episode number 306 with Shai Reshef. Really excited for our conversation today because I have known of University of the People for a while and really admired what you all do. So looking forward to helping to uplift and kind of explore the work that you all are doing there so more people kind of know and appreciate it and hopefully take some inspiration from it as well. We will start, as we always do, briefly introduce yourself and your professional background, and then we'll get into introducing UoPeople as well. But introduce yourself first to kick us off.
Great. So I'm Shai Reshef. I'm the founder and president of University of the People, which is the first nonprofit, tuition-free, accredited online American university, which was built to serve all those who cannot get into higher education, otherwise qualified, but cannot get into higher education. We use technology to bring education to them.
I'm curious, I guess, what led you to embarking on this path, committing yourself to this work? 'Cause I think it is such a great example that kind of, refutes maybe what a lot of people would say of like something like this, like isn't possible. It's like, well, we're doing it. It's happening. We're accredited. We're serving students and all that sort of thing. So like, back at sort of like the beginning, like what inspired you to kind of start on this path?
So it's interesting because, well, I was in for-profit education for over 20 years. And I was in charge of tens of programs that serves hundreds of thousands of students, mainly in Europe. And then I started the first online university outside of the US in Europe in partnership with the University of Liverpool. And I realized how powerful online learning can be. We had students from all over the world. They can stay home, keep their job, and still get this great European education. At the same time, I also realized that for most people, it was a wishful thinking. It was too expensive. So I sold this university, and it was for profit at the time, and the rest of my business, just to realize that I'm not going to retire. My family felt that I should do something instead of staying home. And they looked around and they realized that everything that made higher education so expensive was available for free. Open source technology, open educational resources, and I discovered that there are websites where professors are going online every day and helping the students with their homework on a daily basis. So I said, wait a second. Technology, content, and professors, that's a university. All I have to do is to put it together and create a university. So I felt at that time that I'm fortunate. It's my time to give back. And I realized that the need is huge for higher education. At that year, it was 2009, UNESCO came with a study that said that in 2025, there will be 100 million students that will not have seats in the available university that will be there. So I decided to create a tuition-free university. So I announced, I put everything together, announced University of the People in a conference in Munich. The next day, the New York Times wrote a page about it. And the following day, I already had hundreds of emails of professors who said, this is an amazing idea, we want to help. And they built the university. So that was the idea of University of the People, to serve to serve all the people who did not have other opportunities. But your question was right, because especially at the beginning, it's like, really? How are you going to make it happen? Because we based on volunteers. Can a university be based on volunteer? Will it have the quality? What about the finance? How will you get your expenses? And will you ever be accredited? And what will be the reputation? Well, we are more than 16 years after that announcement. We have by now 170,000 students, 47,000 volunteers, and we are accredited by WASC. For those who do not know, Stanford, Berkeley, UCLA are all accredited by WASC, so we have a great accreditation, and we are doing what we promised to do.
It's been amazing to see some of those kind of milestone moments you've achieved recently around like accreditation, things like that. It's been really cool. And then this is what I think, a lot of people were sort of theorizing or sort of thinking about as sort of like the advent of kind of this current wave that I feel like we're still kind of cresting down from, of like, high quality digital online education. That idea of like, well, yeah, you can do it really high quality and bring these great professors and everybody. But then like, I think there was then that kind of fracturing of like, well, we're actually going to still be like a for-profit company and publicly traded, like just obviously like all these different avenues or ways to approach this work. But I do think that like earnestly there was a lot of like hope around a model like this being something that was sort of born out of that. So it's really great that you all have been able to kind of commit and persist with that. And, even just with what you're kind of alluding to too, I think like seeing that there's still been kind of, because of that sort of huge kind of ripple effect or kind of paradigm shift of that environment and ecosystem around the student, it's not just the inside the classroom experience being kind of high quality and online and really engaging. It's the support, it's the mentoring, it's the coaching, it's community, and all that stuff has now been blossoming kind of around the student as well. And I think that's something where it's been kind of the wind at the back of the folks like yourself who are committing in all their different forms and shapes to continuing to push online education forward and having just different options, because I think, using all of this, I get to kind of set up my next question is I think, the other thing that we've seen too is like more sort of modular, like, okay, you can take this short course over here, you could get a certificate, you could get a full degree, and all these different things of like the classroom experience, the co-curricular experience, and just sort of like different credentials and things that you can pursue have all been kind of hallmarks of change over the past several years in online education. How has the nature of your team's work changed over those years?
It changed a lot. I want to remind everyone one period along these years, which is the COVID era. So when we started, people looked at us and said, really, can you study online? It's not serious. How can you even teach online? How can students study online? It's not the real thing. And people look at us, we were at the margin. Then COVID came, and we were the only one who knew how to teach students online. Everyone went online, but all universities had to close down and move online, and they didn't know what to do. And a lot of damage was created because they did the wrong things. However, when COVID came back, when COVID, after COVID, most universities went back to the old days, simply because they wanted, these are the good old days. The students don't feel this way. Every single student now in the US take at least one course online. Every university in the US offer courses online, in most cases even full programs online. So online is there to stay, and it makes sense because what students realized, why do I need to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning when I drank the night before, instead of waking at 12 o'clock and just watch the video of the professor talk? Anyway, I sit in class and listen. I can sit at home, actually drink beer and listen to the professor. Second, if the professor ran too fast, I can listen again or slow him down if it's video. If they ran too slow, I can make it faster. So it gives a lot of opportunities to the students to understand even better. So students prefer it, not instead of other courses. I mean, they still take some courses because socialization of Campus life is important for many students, and there are other benefits, but they integrate online. So this is a major thing that happened. Online became legitimate, and we were there. The second thing that happened is that more and more students, and that came, the role of higher education is not only to teach a job, it's to teach the students critical thinking, to make them well-rounded individuals, people who are curious about the world, who have deep knowledge and vast perspective. We chose only the degrees that will help our students find a job. We teach undergraduate in business administration, computer science, and health science, graduate level in education, IT, and MBA, Master in Business Administration. However, at the same time, 1/3 of our degree is general studies, because we do believe that students should know beyond the job that they are going to have to be a good human being. But I think that the world is going our direction as well in this perspective. More and more students say, and especially in the US, and especially because of the price of higher education, listen, we cannot afford the cost of higher education. So if I want to study a profession, I'll just take a course about this profession and go and work rather than spend 4 years and come out of college with $200,000 debt, which I don't know if I'll ever be able to pay. The KPIs, the ROI on this investment is not necessarily there. So a lot of students follow non-traditional higher education path. What we do, we try to combine the both, because we do believe in the importance of higher education, but we do believe also that teaching the students for the job market is important. As such, we are now moving into more and more certificates. So what we do, we bring in the students, tell them, study toward a certificate, which will give you a job opportunity, kind of a certificate for the job market. After you have the certificate, you can go and work, but you can also continue with us toward a degree. So you gain certificates which makes you relevant for the job market, but at the same time get a higher education. By the way, I think that all the studies in the US, when students say that they don't want to study in universities, they don't say that the universities are not important. They say that they are too costly. And we try, with us, you pay $1,600 per year if you study full time. The ROI is there. So
Yeah, it's such a different kind of calculus for sure, because it's like you're saying, there's a lot of like opportunity costs and different things. If you're committing to something, it's like, well, I'm spending all this money. There's so much that goes into it, and obviously just like an easier equation. That thinking is, I think, where whoever it is, like that idea of it now kind of been this tipping point where it's just like, it's really hard to justify. Like, I appreciate it, I know get me to where I want to go and whatever else, but it's just like, it's just really hard to justify the cost. And I think it is like kind of just interesting with what you're saying, and that idea too of like, I think we've reached kind of peak expansiveness of like the different like degree options or whatever, like, things that you can study. Because it's like, well, at the core of it, it's like a few just really core kind of disciplines that you're instructing, and then maybe, just allow, people to kind of explore with like electives or whatever else. It's like, there's like these institutions where there's just been like very little or no enrollment for some period of time. And like, they're just now kind of finally being like, oh, I guess we may need to like scrap this program that's sort of just been kind of on life support for a while, so that they can kind of devote resources in the programs that are sort of, in demand, relevant. And with what you're saying, what really resonates with me is like, if you're not thinking about it in a way of like, okay, as you've existed for maybe, 100, 200 years or something institution, you're essentially just kind of like reforming the kind of existing model. There's a lot to sort of build on, but the demands of learners today is changing for like the modality and like the length of the program and like those sort of things. So you just need to be kind of more mindful of that.
The world is changing, and you have to adapt to the new world and change yourself, because if you keep the old model, you will not survive. You look, there are less and less students going to higher education. So, the reaction of most universities, let's market harder. Well, but if the total pie is shrinking, someone will pay the price. So you need to look and say, what should I do differently in order to be relevant for the future? And this is different programs and different methods and different price point. You should be a different institution, otherwise you won't survive. Yes, if you are one of the 10 top universities, you can charge as much as you want and you can do whatever you want. And just because of your brand name, you will get always as many students as you want. But, the top 10 are also only 10. So what about the other thousands of universities? So, yeah.
If the idea is like you just keep marketing harder the same thing that like people aren't as like receptive to, it's just like it's going to take a lot to convince them. They're going to spend like a lot of money marketing. So, but I think on that point of like adapting to the moment, anticipating the future, and kind of building towards that, AI obviously is a hot topic of conversation. So I'm just curious, any quick kind of anecdotes that you can share about how AI may be impacting your operations, your curriculum, your instruction, just any sort of examples that you'd want to highlight of AI integrating to kind of your current work.
AI is going to make higher education a different story. So it will change dramatically higher education. So I'll just talk about us. And what we do is relevant for everyone else. When we look at what AI can help us, it can help us in every single thing that we're doing as a university. First of all, enrolling students. We have an open door policy. Anyone with high school diploma is welcome to come to us and show us that they can make it. And if they can make it, they take 2 courses, they pass them, they get credit for them and continue with us. However, there are a lot of people who come to us that are not ready and are not qualified. Well, AI can help us identify the students who are more likely to graduate, not wasting our time and their time. Well, we are tuition free, so money is not the issue, but still, time is very important. So this is one. Second, when they got in, well, being there to help them in any difficulty that they have, they need advice which course to take, how to sign up. They have financial issues. They want to take a break. Their technology doesn't work. All this, the AI can be there and answer their questions, all their questions. Right now, we have teams of endless number of people who are there, who are program advisors who help our students with any question they have. Well, AI can answer most of the questions, if not all of them. And as we grow, even more important. Then you go, and the most important thing there is identify students at risk. AI can identify students at risk and intervene in the right moment with the right solution. This is like, what all of us need to make sure that the students progress, all of our higher education are looking for finding the students that are at risk and help them to overcome the challenges and stay with us and complete their studies. Now then when they graduate, help them find a job. So, but all this was the non-academic, the administrative part. Look at the academic part. AI, wow. First of all, writing better courses. But even more important, personalized learning. Every one of us study differently. Some people like to listen. Some people like to read. Some people like to interact as the way they study. Some people like to be asked questions after every sentence they hear to make sure that they learn. Some people study fast. Some people study slow. Well, AI can build a program which is personalized for every student. Moreover, think about the content. If you are a cat lover or a dog lover, AI can tailor a program that will talk about whatever, will integrate life of cats into I don't know what, but can bring in topics that will resonate with you and will make it more interesting to you. So personal learning is extremely important tool that will make education much more interesting, much more interactive, and will help students to learn more and to learn better. So AI is there, and by the way, and this is very important, I don't think that AI will replace the professors. The personal attention, the human attention should always be there. But let's free our professor from 80% of their job, which is bureaucratic, answering questions that are in the textbook. AI can answer the question. You don't need a professor. There are a lot of bureaucratic work that they do, which we can save them and free them to do the work that only they can do, which would be this human touch to the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is so spot on because I think that's like for me is, AI as this augment that like harnesses all this data that all these great platforms that we're using, like the learning management system or student information system or whatever else, like, and it can do kind of the analysis or kind of following kind of the trends and yeah, like empower a faculty member, empower like an advisor or whoever to know like, hey, it seems like students are really kind of struggling with this concept in your course, like, flagging that, kind of pinging that, professor, because it's like in a lot of ways where some of these platforms, like they would just like have all this data. You'd have to kind of like click through manually, sort of like, look through and be like, oh, okay, this many students like, got the same question wrong on the quiz or whatever. So maybe I review that or whatever else. Or wow, our little like AI chatbot that's in the LMS like got this same kind of question a lot of times over the past week. So yeah, maybe we need to review that concept. Or yeah, that same idea where it's just like, hey, we did this analysis, like students assigned to you like haven't registered, we're X amount of days from whatever, from the registration deadline, and just like doing all that analysis versus like, yeah, again, it just being manual. It's optimizing, it's giving more time, like you said, for kind of the high quality touch points, inside and outside of the classroom. So yeah, that's what I'm really optimistic about. And I think it's part of like where we're at now is like we're still early days, but I think it's just that idea of like start somewhere, because it's like all these tools are only going to get better the more we use them and refine them and give feedback or whatever. You owe it to yourself, your team, and your students to try to start kind of iterating and all that, because it's like if you're like, I don't know, maybe whatever, and it's like, however long until you really kind of earnestly start, harnessing AI, it's just like, well, it feels like you just like wasted a lot of time where you could have like been trying to at least like do your work a little bit more effectively and efficiently. So I think, yeah, again, that's going to take a lot of flavors and shapes for folks, depending kind of on their readiness or their institution or whatever else. But I think it is prudent to be trying to start somewhere. I guess on a similar point, what are you excited about that's on the horizon for your institution?
Our mission is to open the gates for as many qualified students as possible. So we have 170,000 students. Among them, 34,000 are refugees and IDPs, internally displaced people, which I can't be happier. They're coming from all over the world. We have 5,400 Afghan women who are hiding at home and studying with us. And what I'm extremely thrilled about is that we start having graduates among them. And 60% of the women who graduate in Afghanistan work remotely as programmers with international companies. It's like, for me, that's exactly why we built the university. And we want to do much more. Now, one of the challenges that we have is that we have a lot of first-generation students. They usually need help in order to study. They find it's harder for them, and I'm thrilled to that Coca-Cola just joined us and announced that they are going to give us $800,000 for first-generation students, which is for me is amazing because it will help us do even better and recruit even more students that they need us so much. So for us, it's improving the quality, continue growing, improving the quality, and serving more populations that need us so much. So, and I think, look, we are building a model. We are building a model to show that higher education can be accessible, affordable, with the right quality. And having so many students show that we do something right. But I'm looking for the day that our model will be replicated by others. Because I mentioned that UNESCO stated that in 2025, it's almost over, there will be 100 million students who need higher education opportunity. We cannot serve 100 million. You know what? I don't want to serve 100 million students. Others should do the same. And that's by looking at what we do and do something similar, something different, but serving the people, opening the gates. And technology and AI enable us to do that, so we should do it. And I think that that's the future, and we are paving the future for us and for others as well.
Yeah. Well, and then similar kind of notion, when I feel like, when we talk to folks from Minerva, they kind of have that similar notion is like they want to be kind of this like, role models for other institutions to kind of just approach higher ed in a different way and be kind of this like reformer and kind of advocate for that. So I appreciate sort of you uplifting that. And I think, it is that idea too with like in higher education and stuff, like you are like planting a lot of seeds that will eventually blossom and, be ready for harvest. And the students are like graduating and all that. So it's like, it is that idea of like, oh, it feels like, oh, it's the end of this journey as students graduate. It's like, it is just the beginning because now they have this credential and they can start their life and, do all these amazing things. So that's always something, it's always great, I guess, to be able to look forward to that in higher education of just like more students engaging and graduating and getting to, pursue their dreams.
I was last week in Rome at Catholic University's a conference on migrants and refugees. So because migrants and refugees, they invited us, even though, we are not Catholic. But so it was in Rome, and we met the Pope, which was great. I shook the hand of the Pope, which congratulate us on the great work that we're doing. But someone approached me there and reminded me that he was a refugee who left Eritrea and walked through the desert. And then, I met him as a refugee, and he started with us, but he ended up in Canada, did his undergraduate and graduate school with York University, and now he's working in an NGO that help other refugees. And you feel like, that's the people, that's why you do it. We read one day that one of our students got the UN Prize for creating solar panels in Kakuma, a refugee camp in Kenya, to bring electricity and internet connection to the camp. We didn't know about him, but his knowledge come from us. So great. We have a student, a woman who started with us in Afghanistan after the Taliban closed their universities. And then while she was studying with us, she applied to a few universities, got accepted to PhD at Carnegie Mellon, and now she's working on her PhD with Carnegie Mellon. So, you open the gates to people who need help, and you give them higher education, you actually give them the opportunity for better life. But we should all remember that when you give them a better life, it's not only for them, it's them, their families, their communities, and by extension, our world.
Powerful stuff. And I think you're now sort of this proof of concept that has like been working and kind of expanding its reach and all that. So like, yeah, these moments of very much kind of extreme need and disruption for people all over the world, it's going to just continue to be like good word of mouth will be available, or you just be able to continue to kind of promote yourself and sort of like, share examples of like, yeah, we've served learners just like you who've gone through this sort of experience, versus it being like, take our word for it, whatever. It's like, hey, if you're not going to take our word for it, take it from, this former refugee who, like that's, I think, what is the idea of it sort of feeds on itself to kind of reinforce what you're doing and be a powerful example to folks, who may, go through those circumstances. But like you said, it sort of just kind of keeps furthering the mission to have folks who are inspired by your example, either just by going through it or, just see it and want to just kind of be supportive of it. So we will wrap up, though, as we usually do, just kind of giving you the final word. What advice, call to action do you have for other, folks in higher ed navigating this moment to help wrap up the episode?
For students or people who consider to be students, I highly recommend going to higher education, because having a profession is not enough. In order to be successful, be a good citizen and be a good human being, you need broader knowledge, and that's what higher education for you. If you can afford going to any university, go there. If you cannot afford, come to us. University of the People is for those who need this option, either because they don't have the money, either because they don't have the time and they need the flexibility, or for any other reason, or stay home mom who can stay home and study with us. We charge, if you pay the full amount and study full time, it's $1,600 a year, or $6,400 for a full degree. However, I think that I would not only recommend all the students, all the people to study, I recommend them not to give up the opportunities when they have it, because otherwise they will regret it. But also, I think that I will say to higher education institutions, face the reality and see how you adapt to it rather than ignoring it and say, we can do it in spite of the reality. It doesn't work for long. So good luck to all of us.
Good advice on both fronts, and hopefully folks listening are just inspired to create those learning opportunities for more people and face the reality, adapt, and sort of meet this moment, because I think it is sort of just a watershed moment for folks working in higher education and the way that we sort of maintain relevance and all those sort of things. So we'll have ways to connect with you and UoPeople in the description for this episode. Definitely encourage folks to give you a follow and to follow UoPeople and kind of keep tabs on what you're doing like I have for the past several years. And again, it's been really exciting to see kind of the growth and everything. So yeah, just really appreciate all that you've shared, all that you do, and for hanging out for this episode.
And thank you for inviting me. It was great pleasure talking to you. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.